And now, Fastened Like Nails with Dr. Mark Hamby.
Welcome to another Fastened Like Nails. I'm Mark Hamby, and in the studio with me, my today's co-host, Molly Mayo.
Hello.
Molly, great to have you here. Today's not going to be an easy one. Today is going to be wisdom lesson number 8.
Mm-hmm.
The title is Loose Words, Loose Women, and Loss of Life.
Not a fun subject matter.
It's not, but it's an unusual way to deliver it, which is kind of interesting. The Father's going to deliver this message in a surprising way. Mm-hmm. You got to picture yourself, if you were a son and your father was going to give you this lesson, there's some things that come out of this that are like, wait a minute, I don't get this, Dad. And there comes a time when every son and daughter have to have that talk with their mom and dad, girls usually with the mom and guys with the dad. And this is one of those talks, but it's going to come in the form of what appears to be bad business contracts.
Very interesting way to look at things.
Yeah, and the study of ants, the study of gazelles, and
birds
and sleep.
Oh.
So we're going to look at how does all of that fit into the preparation for sexual purity. So kind of odd, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't probably do it that way.
Business contracts, ants, gazelles, birds, and sleep. What does that have to do?
Very creative.
It is very creative. So let's start right off with the very first verse in Proverbs chapter 6, where it says, "My son, if you be surety for your friend." So let's define some words.
Surety.
What does surety mean, Molly?
Well, I just looked it up in the Strong's dictionary. It says to braid, that is intermix, technically to traffic, as if by barter, to give or be security as a kind of exchange, engage, intermeddle with, mingle, and so on.
Okay, you mentioned one part. It said to provide security.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pledge.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pledge or promise.
Ooh, this one says even mingle with.
Interesting, in light of what's about to take place.
Yeah.
But let's just look at the very basic definition of surety. It's being a cosigner for a loan. It's someone that's going to promise that, let's say that you asked me to cosign at the bank a loan for your new car.
Mm-hmm. Mark, I just found out what Mitsubishi was, and I would love to get one. But the thing is, I don't have enough money. Would you help me out?
Molly, yeah, I'd be glad to help you out. What do I have to do? Just
you don't really have to do anything. Just like going in there, they just need someone else to sign the loan, in case anything happens. But I mean, I have the money. I just need to.
Sure, I'll just go sign for you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Cool.
So I go and sign for you, and let's say that all of a sudden you decide that you're going to live a life that is not really that great. And the next thing you know, you're broke. You spend your money on riotous living, and you're broke, and you still owe this money. And so the bank comes to you. They can't even find you. So now they come to me. They can find me because I'm still at my business. I'm still working. They come to me and say, hey, we need full payment for the loan that you signed. Now I'm stuck with your loan. I trusted you, but you failed to pay the piper, so so I've got to pay it. Now, what does that have to do with moral purity? And what does that have to do with this lesson? Now, you got to remember, lesson 8, chapter 6, is on the heels of lesson 7, chapter 5.
Yeah, which was rather intense as well.
And that dealt with
sexual purity and intimacy in marriage.
In the father telling the son, I want you to be intoxicated with the love for your wife of your youth. And if you aren't in love with the wife of your youth, and more particularly in love with wisdom, you need to exalt wisdom, you need to honor wisdom, and you need to, what was the last one?
Embrace her.
Embrace her.
That's beautiful.
So when you're doing that with wisdom and your wife, you're no longer going to have time or the distractions in this world to be lured away from the things that are most important in your life.
A little bit ago, we were talking as a staff, there were some of us who were talking about like lust and how I think you had brought it up where like, you know, a great defense against something like that is saying verses. And at first you like start like reciting a verse to yourself and you're like, this is doing nothing for it or whatever. But then by the end of the verse, it was like, whoa, you know, my mind's totally focused on other things. And it's like crowning out the bad with the good things. And even though in that moment, it's like, this is pointless, this is useless, whatever, like, that's very powerful. Like having that defense, and Scripture is such a strong sword against that.
When Jesus was tempted, he quoted Scripture.
Yeah.
My go-to verse is, "There's no temptation taken me, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer me to be tempted above which I am able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that I might be able to bear it." So I was the one actually giving that illustration that day. By the time I get to the end of that verse, now, and if the temptation is still great at that point, now my next go-to verse is Joshua 1:8-9. "This book of the law will not depart out of my mouth, but I'll meditate on it day and night, that I may observe to do according to all that is written therein." You know, that and then I shall find success. You know, there's more to the verse than that. Be strong and courageous, and you know, do the work of the Lord. You know, that's what that verse is teaching. And so by the time I quote the first verse in 1 Corinthians 10:13, by the time I get to the second verse in Joshua chapter 1, if still I'm not being helped, now I'm going to go to Psalm chapter 1, you know, and blessed is the man that does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly. But, you know, so I'm going to keep moving. And as I do that, if I'm faithful to the Word of God, God is going to be faithful to me, and He's going to bring light in the midst of darkness, and the darkness will flee. And that's how you fight these temptations. And that's what wisdom is teaching the son in chapter 5. And she says to him very pointedly, if you do not do this, if you do not walk in the light. By the way, just earlier today, someone contacted us here at Lamplighter. The wife said that she lost her love for her husband, which is kind of foolish to say because you don't lose your love. You just choose not to love. But anyway, so it's a serious situation. She lost her love for her husband, and she wanted... they wanted to know, actually the son had contacted me and wanted to know what he should say. And I said, tell her to get help. Tell her to contact her pastor and her pastor's wife, her godly friends, and tell them to pray for her. And then tell her to get out into the light. Because if we walk in the light as he is in the light, what will happen? We'll have fellowship one with another. So the fellowship, the joy of relationships start to be renewed when we get out into the light and admit that we're having issues. If we stay secluded and we hide, what happens is you stop going to church, you stop reading your Bible, you stop talking to good friends, prayer ceases.
It pushes people away.
Yeah, and so get in the light and we'll have fellowship one with another. And so, and Molly, the blood of Jesus Christ cleanses us from all sin. So we become more sanctified in that process. And so as we move from chapter 5 and the warnings that were given to the son, listen, son, if you don't take this seriously, if you don't take embracing wisdom seriously, and that word embrace wisdom is a romantic term.
Oh, that's interesting.
Beautiful. God wants us to be romanced by wisdom. You know, where you're in creation, wisdom was dancing and having fun and laughing in creation. God wants us to have that kind of relationship with Him, where we become so focused on His work in our lives and the answers to prayer that we start to get in the work that He involves us in, that all of a sudden life becomes fun again, life becomes exciting again, and we pursue wisdom more and more and more. And when we do that, we get to honor wisdom, we get to lift wisdom up, exalt her, and then we embrace wisdom. And when we're doing that, we don't have time to embrace the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes. And so that's what Proverbs chapter 5 was teaching. And he warns the son, if you don't do this, then you're going to embrace folly. And she's coming to get you. She is at every corner. She's stealth. She wants to have you. And the father says, and here's the consequences. You're going to lose your
joy
and the 5 V's.
Oh, yeah, virtue, valor, value, vitality, and vigor.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, and so as soon as the father finishes his teaching, he says to the son, listen, this is so serious, son. If you don't embrace wisdom, and the wife of your youth. And the son's not married yet. He's looking forward to the time his son will be married. He's giving his son this lesson and saying, hey, look, this is what you got to look forward to. I want you to be intoxicated with the love of the wife of your youth. I want you to embrace her. I want you to find fulfillment in her. And he gives some very intimate images of how he wants the son, which is very beautiful.
Yeah, and it's not done in a suggestive or explicit sort of way where you're not reading it and going down that path.
No, it's amazing. The Bible never goes out of bounds with sexual things.
Well, even, like in Genesis and some of the messed up stuff in there, it's very tastefully written.
Yeah. Judah commits.
Yeah.
He has a prostitute, and I realize, and it's his daughter-in-law, but there's no real... he doesn't go into detail of any of the stuff.
The Old Testament is filled with messed up stuff.
Even the violence that occurs in the Bible doesn't go into detail. David cuts Goliath's head off. That's all it says. It just doesn't go into... I mean, that's pretty bad in itself.
Yeah.
But the ancient Greeks actually believed that when you escalate violence and you escalate sex, they were not...
even profanity and, what you're saying.
They kept profanity and obscenity off stage.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what
they
the word...
said it was vulgar.
Yes.
It wasn't. It was an art that they were trying to portray an excellence, and so they kept everything that was crude or vulgar or just
obscene.
I mean we went and saw a play one time, and it was just a high school play that they were putting on, and I was so disgusted by that. It was like appealing to the depravity of man. Like it was celebrating these things that were just suggestive and crude and disgusting. Like
a local public high school, and this one of the actors in the play invited us, and they were real excited about us coming. And in the very end of it, they even had two girls or two guys kissing. It was just it was not. It really made me realize that people need God's truth so badly. They're trying to find it in all the wrong ways right now.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about that before, like the plays that are put on, because I used to not understand plays and why they're out there. It was just fun, like make-believe. But what it was is when you connect with these stories and they give you ideals and themes and things to inspire you or to evoke emotion and inspiration in a good sense. You know, I've been reading about Joshua in the Bible, and it's been really inspiring, like this man of faith. And, when you're watching a play like that, then you're teaching high school kids, like, it's okay to go out and experiment with love. And it's okay to,
well, I would say experiment with lust, not love. But.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. But just the different elements that it was incorporating, it was like, it's okay, and they have this like free, lust. And that's what the morals are being integrated into. It's just like disgusting. And that's the power of words.
Once you start watching violence, sex on movies or stage, you lose the continuity of beauty and excellence and truth. So that's chapter 5. Chapter 6, the father now is taking the son into the next lesson, and you would think it would just follow another my son, and it does, my son, but my son, don't be surety for your friend. And it's like, what in the world does that have to do with? So you would think reading chapter 6. So listeners, if you're reading chapter 6, you would think that it has no connection with chapter 5 whatsoever, and no connection with chapter 7. Chapter 6 appears to be thrown in the middle of these two chapters, out of context, being surety for your friend, striking hands with a stranger, go to the ant, look at the gazelle, the bird, the fowler. And then these are and don't give sleep to your eyelids. And these are the 6 things that God hates. And 7 is abomination to you. And then there's a discussion on adultery. It's like, what in the world? So most people would look at chapter 6 and say, these are unrelated topics. But they're not. They are extremely related and interwoven throughout all of the wisdom lessons. This is the wisdom lesson that the son needs to hear based on what the Father just taught him in chapter 5, lesson number 7. And this is it. Don't be surety for your friend. And we just talked about the word surety carries the idea of don't co-sign a loan or don't make a promise for your friend. Don't make a pledge for your friend, okay? Why?
And this is someone who's close to you, your friend. It's like your...
Yeah, it's a good friend.
Yeah, good friend.
Okay, so this next part of the verse, though, it says something so strange. So, my son, if you be surety for your friend, don't take it if I'm a pledge or I'm going to be securing your debts.
Yep.
Okay.
For my Mitsubishi.
If you strike hands with a stranger. Okay. Now, striking hands literally meant back then giving like maybe a high five or a handshake, or it was something where people would connect to each other's arms together. This was recognition of a covenant promise. This was recognition that, yes, I'm sealing the deal. But the question is, who is the stranger?
Thy hand with a stranger.
So you're promising to your friend that I'm going to pay your debts, but guess who your friend is indebted to?
I don't know, some stranger.
A stranger. And the word stranger is the word zur in Hebrew, and it carries the idea of a foreigner.
That's something that we have heard before.
Okay, a foreigner or someone of immoral character or an adulterer. It could be any one of those three. What's happening here is the son is being warned not to become a security for the debts of his good friend, especially when his good friend is indebted to a foreigner, a stranger, someone of immoral character or someone of unknown character. Okay? So...
Well, we had just talked about this person, the Zur, because we went back to the original Hebrew. You can find that in like Strong's Concordance, or if you have like eSword or Blue Letter Bible. The Zur was in chapter 5, and this is the person who is taking away his virtue, valor, vigor, vitality, and value.
So chapter 6 here in Proverbs is right on schedule. The context is connected with chapter 5. We saw this person appear in chapter 5.
And they're dangerous. They're out to get you.
She's stealth. She wants to get you. And she loves for people to be in debt to her. Okay, so let's find out a little bit more about this woman. So how does a person like this, how does a friend of yours get into trouble like this? It happens all the time. Back then it happens all the time. For example, Judah. Do you remember Judah?
And Tamar?
Judah and Tamar. Tamar dressed up as a prostitute.
His
Judah,
daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law. And what does she require?
A son.
No. Okay, yes. But she said, if you're going to commit this act with me, then I want your ring, your signet ring. I want your staff.
Some tokens.
And I want your cloak. Okay? Now, having those things, she was using it to proof of who got her pregnant. But also... it's always going to cost you something to enter into a relationship with someone like that. And so this Zur, what she's doing with the son's friend is somehow she's already he's in debt to her. We don't know how he's in debt to her, but let's say, for example, in today's vernacular, and maybe even back then, there's gambling debts. Let's say some kid gets involved in, a card game.
Okay.
And let's say he's got this hand that's a killer hand, right? Full house.
Okay.
And but he's playing against these people that have suckered him in. Okay?
Oh yeah, let him win.
Here's this 18-year-old. He's on his own for the first time in his life, and they're drinking a little bit, and he thinks he's been invited into the bigger crowd. He's with all these adults. They aren't really adults, but let's say they're acting. They're in age-wise they're adults, but maturity-wise they're children. And so he's got this killer hand, right? But the dealer, the whole thing's set up.
Oh, sure.
And they're like, and they go like, I put everything in, $100. Another guy goes, no, $200. And this kid's like, I've got an unbeatable hand, And he's like, I call, and they're like, well, you don't have the money to call. And they're like, well, I can I borrow some money? And the lady at the table like, sure, honey, I'll give it to you. You can borrow from me. That's the Zur. She's at the table too. The whole thing's set up, and they've set this whole thing up because they know this kid is so vulnerable. And he goes, okay, yes, here's what I've got. And he shows her his hand. And she goes, oh yeah, I'll back you. And he puts everything he's got in there. And then he shows his straight, let's say, maybe it's whatever. And all of a sudden, they have 4 aces, And so the kid is like blown away. And all of a sudden, she's like, I need my money. She pays the debt off right there to other people. She's in this whole thing. And now he's got to go and get the money. And he doesn't know how to get the money. He doesn't have the money. So he's got a couple choices. He's either going to go and tell his parents, I'm in trouble, or tell one of the authorities in his life, I'm in trouble, I need help. Or he's probably going to go and try to steal it from his parents or from his siblings, or he's going to go to one of his siblings and say, hey, look, I'm in trouble. Can you help me out? And if the siblings won't help, guess what he's going to do? He's going to go to you, your best friend. And he's going to say, hey, I need some help right now. I'm in debt. He's not going to tell you how he got in debt. But he's like, I'm in debt, and I got this. I can get the money back to you within a week or two, but can I just borrow $200? And he knows you're working, you've got some money, and you look out and you're like, well, who's that in the car? And he's going like, yeah, that's my new friend, and she's helping me financially too, and hey, in fact, she wants to meet you, and so you go out there and you give your friend, the money, and it's not enough though. Okay, it's not enough because she now lets him know that these guys, they're going to beat her up, and it's double the amount. So all of a sudden, see what she's doing? She's playing him. She's making him think like, hey, they're gonna hurt me if I don't give them the money they want. So now she's playing on his emotions, and so he's got the 200, but he needs another 200, and so your friend brings you out there, and let's say that you're a guy, okay, and the 2 guys, his friend goes out there to talk to her, and now you got to seal the deal with her, and you got to promise that you're going to pay her debts as well. You got to see she is the one that he's indebted to. She got him to owe her $200, and now she wants you now to promise that you're going to pay whatever other debts he has, and so they're going to strike hands. You got to strike hands now with the stranger, with the Zor, with this person of unknown character. And she's suckering both of you in. She's got you, the son, and the friend. And so you're like, okay, yeah, I'll be able to pay it off within a month. And the next thing you know, during that month's time, she's coming after you. She's going to say, like, they want more than that. And it keeps escalating. I want more. Until finally, one night, she's going to say, maybe we can work this. Let's go out, maybe the 2 of us, let's go out for cocktails, let's go out for dinner. And she's like, you know what? I'll even pay for it. And the 2 of you are out. Now, the friend is out of the picture because you're the only one that can pay it. The son can't pay it, or the friend can't pay it. Okay, you're a little quiet over there. Tell me what's going on.
This just seems so fantastical. Like,
happens all the time.
I can't imagine getting into a situation like this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can. This happens in real life. So you're a little bit protected. You didn't grow up in any of these realms, but kids that are growing up on the streets, kids that are out there playing, gambling, and they're in all kinds of bad situations. People like this experience this a lot, especially people that are on the internet playing those games. They're losing a lot of money. They're trying to get money because they've lost a lot. So they've got to find people that are going to help pay their. Molly, we had 2 people living in this town once where the son got into such gambling debts. He stole everything he could from his mom. And she ended up dying penniless. And he ended up dying an overdose of drugs. So he couldn't stop his habits.
That's terrible.
The same thing happened. Let me tell you another story. This really happened in this town. There was a young man. I went to school with this kid. He got involved with the wrong crowd, and he got involved with drugs, and he couldn't pay for it. He started stealing from his mom and his dad. During this time, his dad got cancer and died. He used all the money from his dad's insurance policy, on his habits. But the people that he was buying the drugs from, he owed them big time. They were going to kill him. This happened in this town.
Mm-hmm.
He eventually started to get his mom to get money for him, for his habits. His mom, I knew this woman. She was a wonderful woman, Molly. His mom started to steal from the people that she would go clean houses.
Ooh.
She would steal from the people she cleaned houses for. This is a real thing. It happens in a little town like this. It happens everywhere.
So with the son, so this is a prince, someone who's probably grown up with money and been around that. He somehow has a friend who's like kind of in the wrong crowd and mixed up with his Zor. So he's not like specifically around this lady. He's just got a friend who's been mixed up in that and somehow gets enticed or manipulated into a deal with the guy. And now he has to come in contact with this lady. How does something like that happen to the son of a king?
Oh, how many kings have lost everything they've had? I mean, Herod lost half his kingdom to his daughter-in-law.
So we'd learned about like being careful who your friends are.
His daughter, not daughter-in-law, his stepdaughter. I mean, look how she got him to cut off his friend's head. I mean, how does that happen?
I don't know.
By seduction, luring somebody, by setting them up. It happens so easily. The mother says to his daughter, I want you to go and entice your stepfather so that he will let me have something big. And those type of entrapments happen all the time. You've got to remember, this is a king's son, but God is writing this for perpetuity. This is for all mankind. Okay, so Molly, let's back up and pull this all together. So the father is teaching his son. He says, my son, if you be surety for your friend, don't secure debts for your friend. Okay? Because if you do, whoever your friend owes, you're going to be in debt to them as well. And so the friend of the son is in debt to the stranger, a woman of unknown character or of immoral character. As soon as the son signs the deal with the friend, he now has to, the scripture says, strike hands with the stranger. So the son now is in relation to the stranger. And that's what happens. As soon as you become indebted to your friend, you are indebted to who his friends are. And
he had just been told in the previous chapter, don't even go near the door of her house. Don't walk by. Don't look at her. Don't come in contact with her at all. And so somehow now he's in the very seat of danger.
Do you see what what this Zor is doing, the stranger's doing? She knows she can't get to him. She's circumventing a way around through his friend to get to him. Do you see how sly Satan is here?
Very manipulative.
Okay, so my son, if you're surety for your friend, you've struck hands with the stranger. And that is, you're sealing the deal with the stranger. And here's in my mind, this is how it plays out. This woman of unknown character, immoral character, I picture her as being wealthy. She's beautiful. She's seductive.
Probably very composed and unassuming.
Yep. And she's now probably telling...
Very down to earth.
She's telling the son, look at your friend, they're going to beat him up. They're going to kill him. We've got to get this money. Molly, this is happening today in our culture with... I know you don't like hearing these things, but I've got to say it. There's parents out there that got to hear this. There are things going on the internet today. I can't imagine kids growing up with the internet having free access to some of the stuff, or the iPhone. But there's this thing called, and I've mentioned this before when Lou Sterrett was here, there's this thing called sextortion, where kids are being seduced on the internet, and then these people behind the scenes are using these young girls to seduce these young boys, and then they're telling these boys, I need $1,000 or I'm going to share this with your friends, your family, the police, and what you did is illegal. She was underage. All this stuff is happening on the internet today. And so these kids this is the same way this is happening back then. It's happening today in a different way through the internet. These kids feel like there's no hope, and some of these kids are committing suicide because they feel like there's no way out. And the only way out of this is to go to your parents. The only way out of this is go to someone in authority. Go to the police. You know, walk in the light, and God will renew our fellowship, and Christ will be able to forgive us, cleanse us from all unrighteousness.
And
no one is without hope. There's no situation that is so far gone that you've ruined your life totally. God can redeem you. And so there are people out there, there are perpetrators. There are these vile, evil people that are trying to seduce our young people, and they're doing a great job at it because it's very difficult for a young teenager to see something for the first time that it's not inviting. If he doesn't have the convictions where he hates what God hates and loves what God loves, if he doesn't have those convictions formed right now, then the chances that he's going to be easily seduced are high. And so what does the Father teach the Son? If you've done these things, okay, then what must you do next? You ready? Do this now, my son. This is the next verse. Do this, and I like the word emphasis on now. Do this now, my son. And what? Deliver yourself. When you come into the hand of your friend, humble yourself and urge your friend. That word, Molly, think about this. Humble yourself. You know what that word humble means? Throw yourself down. Make yourself so sorry that you did this. Make your friend realize that I got to get out of this, okay? And then he says, urge your friend.
Yeah, this the KJV says, and make sure they friend, and yeah, the word sure is to urge severely.
Mine says, behave boisterously, stormily, arrogantly.
Whoa. What version is that?
That is the Brown Driver and Briggs.
Oh, that's crazy.
Exhaustive concordance.
Boisterously.
Yeah, and arrogantly, insolently. Listen to this. Storm against.
What?
Yeah. To storm against, to bring something into awe and severe alarm. So
yeah, that's kind of alarming.
It's amazing. So the Father's teaching his Son that when you find yourself, when you make decisions that are you realize this is buyer's regret,
remorse,
buyer's remorse. Yeah, you realize like, wow, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I made that promise.
Oh, me, I've been there. Yeah, it's really not a fun thing to be in because sometimes my mouth will get ahead of my brain, and then I'll be like, oh, now I have to stick with that, not like rushing into things without thinking things through. That's one of the things I love about this section. You were talking about some different applications of that, but this is an amazing principle to take with you in life. If you've ended up in a scenario where you've gotten yourself into trouble because of something that you've said or done, or if you've accidentally, like you were talking about, even with Instagram and the whole scheme there, if someone stumbled upon something and maybe what started off innocently at first then kind of led to something deeper than that, the principle of Proverbs 6:3 is something that you can apply to that. It's pretty much exactly what you were talking about.
Well, it's interesting you say that because if you read verse 2, and I skipped that earlier, if you're snared, it says if you're snared, if you've been lured, it's not just a regular word for snared. If you've been trapped, lured into this by seduction, if you've been snared by what? The words of your mouth. If you've been taken, that word taken is to be captured. If you've been captured by what?
The words of thy mouth.
Second, it's repeated twice.
Yeah, actually, that's I think that's a double frame because there's snared and taken, and then words of your mouth, words of your mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And God is saying, like, the main cause of all of this is what?
Your mouth?
Yeah, words of your mouth.
Yeah, because it's binding. It's more binding than you think. We're going to be accountable for every word that we've said.
Not thinking things through, which makes you what kind of person?
Thoughtless, naive, easily enticed, gullible, a fool.
And that's what we've been talking about. The Father's been talking about this whole time. Son, don't be a simple person. Don't be a foolish person. Don't make rash decisions. Think things through. But, as we know, Everybody's going to do this from one time or another. People are going to make rash decisions, make a promise based on feelings. And so do this now, my son. Deliver yourself when you've come into the hand of your friend. What do? Humble yourself, throw yourself down. Literally, it means to stamp oneself down, to tramp down. So you're really coming to your friend, and you're like making a big deal out of this. And then, it says to make sure your friend, to stormily, to boisterously, severely make this such a big deal that your friend realizes you are serious. This is not one of those things where you're just walking away and saying, okay, we'll work this out. No, you're going in full force and saying, like, I made the worst decision of my life. I don't care if this ruins our friendship. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what it costs me. I'm out of this pledge. Okay? Now, you can't just get out of the pledge unless your friend allows you out of it. So it may cost you something. You may have to give your friend all the money that he needs to get out of this, but you have to be the one to get out of the relationship so that you're no longer a security. So that your friend can go do what he wants with the money. You're now no longer involved in this. You make sure that stranger realizes you're not involved in this anymore. And what do? Next verse. Give not sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. What does that have to do with this whole thing? Is it in the context?
Yeah. I mean, it's talking about the measures that you must go to make sure that you get this taken care of.
Why would the father tell him not to give sleep to his eyes?
Because I would like to take a little bit more time to think things through.
Yeah, when you're in a difficult situation with your friends or your family, it's very difficult to...
I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll think this through. I'll wait. And I'll wait another day.
What's another day? It's been like a week.
Another day could cost you your life. You've got to get out of it immediately. That night, do not sleep. Do not go to sleep until this is taken care of. That's how severe the father is making this out.
Yeah, he's got sleep, eyes, slumber, eyelids. So he's got the double theme again.
and if that's not enough, he says, I want you to deliver yourself. By the way, it's the second time he says this. Verse 3, do this now, my son, and deliver thyself. Verse 5, deliver thyself. You see the frame?
Yep.
And in the center, don't even sleep. You ready for this? Deliver yourself as a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. And we've said this before. I'll say it again. If a gazelle is trapped, what will it do?
It will go to such an extreme measure as to kill itself before
allowing itself to be trapped.
Yeah.
If it's in a round pen, it'll bust its head against the wall if it can't leap over it. It will not allow itself to be trapped. And the father's not promoting suicide. He's just saying, son, you need to go to extreme lengths in order to get out of this bad deal. Because it's going to cost you everything if you stay connected with your friend who's connected with this person of immoral character. How many people are involved in business relationships of people of immoral character? I mean, this speaks to me. I'm building a house right now, and I have had several people working that ended up being people of immoral character. And I'm thinking like, okay, maybe I'm trying to reach them for the Lord, but, sometimes I'm thinking like, I shouldn't have them even there. So this convicts me right now of the standards. You don't want to be such a legalist that you got to work with people in the world, right? But this is talking about people who really are they're predators. These are people that are trying to trap people.
We've mentioned the verse from Corinthians: "Bad company corrupts good morals." It's a dangerous place to be in, to be thinking to yourself, "I can handle that."
So the father, to emphasize what he's trying to tell his son in a situation, if you had a bad business deal, you've made a bad promise to your friend, he says, I love this next part, he goes, go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise.
Well, that's an abrupt change of pace.
Notice the emphasis on be wise. Be wise how? Don't give sleep to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle that's trapped. And consider what an ant does. She works tirelessly, even though she does do what? Sleep how often?
Every 2 minutes every day.
She takes a nap every 2 minutes every.
Well, not every day. She takes a bunch of 2-minute naps, like I think 200 or something in a day.
But she's constantly working day and night.
Yeah.
She's constantly working. She's not giving up, right? Mm-hmm. And the father's giving that emphasis to the son. And he says to the son, hey, look it. The ant doesn't even have a guide or an overseer or a ruler. You don't need anyone else's instruction in this situation. You need just to go and do it. Don't get involved in these partnerships and relationships where you think you're always going to get rich quick. The Bible's filled with an teaching of that, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Plow your fields first, afterwards build your house. The Bible's filled with a sense of line upon line, precept upon precept, working slowly and vigorously, and consistently is the key to being successful and being productive. Verse 9 says, how long are you going to sleep, you sluggard? When will you rise out of your sleep? The Father's emphasizing you've got to deal with the situation immediately. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. And so your poverty will come upon you as one that travaileth. One is like an armed man. It's going to come immediately without warning. And so the very beginning, the Father is warning his son, stay away from bad partnerships. Don't sign contracts. Don't get involved with people of unknown character or people of immoral character thinking that you're going to get ahead. This whole context is teaching the son about work steadily, work hard, be like the ant, don't give sleep to your eyelids, get up early, have self-discipline, and stay away from, guess what? Verse 12. A naughty person, a wicked man, walks with a froward mouth. Stay away from these people. Guess what the word naughty means?
What?
It means worthless.
Oh.
Stay away from worthless
Without
people.
Without profit.
Yeah.
Ungodly.
Stay away from worthless people. They wink with their eyes. They speak with their feet. They teach with their fingers. Frowardness is in their heart. They devise mischief continually. And what do?
They sow discord, which the Lord hated.
And God's going to teach about that.
Just a few verses later.
And God's going to teach that next. Therefore, calamity will come suddenly upon you. Suddenly, you will be broken without remedy. The Father's making his son realize, stay away from bad partnerships, bad friendships, especially people that are involved in unknown character, people of unknown character, or people that have questionable character, or people that have immoral character. Stay away from people that have unethical character. And if you are, then God says, okay, here's the clincher. These are the things that I hate. God's going to end this thing by the Father teaching his Son, these are the things that God hates.
Which is the fear of the Lord.
Exactly. But this is the things how he spells it out. These 6 things the Lord hates. 7 are abomination to him. Number 1, a proud look. Stay away from friends and friendships and people of unknown character that have a proud look. Hands that shed innocent blood. That's carrying the idea of taking advantage of weaker people. Stay away from people that take advantage of weaker people. A heart that devises wicked imaginations. They have these imaginations of how they're going to get rich quick. Feet that be swift in running to mischief. These people, I'm going to just tell you something that this is a true story. Okay, so listeners, this really happened. I was in flight training, and all of a sudden, at the last second, a new instructor came out and got on the plane with me. And I'm like, hey, where's Phil? And he goes, he had to go. He's flying U.S. Air, and he's a pilot there, and so he couldn't do the instruction today, so I'm taking his place. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so he gets in there, and just before takeoff, he gets a phone call. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, he put his hand on the throttle, and he wouldn't let me go forward. And so I'm waiting. And so he's talking really loudly. And he's like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Yes, I want in. And he's like, yeah, $25,000. I want to put $25,000 down.
Wow.
And you could hear him saying like, oh, thank you so much. That's amazing. I can't believe it. How much? It'll be worth $1 million in a year? Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me know. Appreciate it.
That is so bizarre.
This happened. And I'm like, who is that? He goes, my son. I said, what was that all about? He goes, my son works for this petroleum company in Texas, and he just told me that they found a huge reservoir of oil, and it's going to go on the market, and the stock is just a real low point.
Exponential.
He says the stock's going to go up like crazy. He goes, now's the time to get in. And I'm like, is that legal? He goes, people in government do it all the time. That's how they get wealthy. And Molly, it was pretty amazing. Now picture this. I even hate confessing this. This was when I was too young and foolish to know better. And I said, can I get in? And he goes, yeah. He goes, how much you want to put in? I said, I don't know. I said, and I remember we had saved $5,000.
Oh, no.
That's all we had. And I said, 5,000? He goes, don't you have any more? He goes, this is big. I said, that's all I have. He goes, yeah, you can put it in. I wrote him a check out when we got out of the plane. And I remember going and looking it up on the internet, and watching it. I watched it like for several weeks, and it's not going up, it's going down. I watched it for a couple months, it's still going down. I watched it for 6 months, still going down. I watched it for a year, it's still going down. I watched it for a year and a half.
Oh, no.
And it's almost down to like worthless. And I'm thinking like, come on, this is going to have to go up. The whole thing was a scam.
No.
It was a scam. I got scammed. Because it was a get-rich-quick scheme. This guy scammed me. The whole thing was a setup. I hate to admit that on air like this, but maybe it'll save someone else from being duped like that. These things don't happen just in financial ways. They happen in sexual ways. They happen in the loss of you can lose everything. What a lesson. It was a $5,000 lesson that I'll never forget. Fool me once. But that's what's happening in this list of things that God hates. Feet that are swift in running to mischief. They want things now. They want it done quickly. Don't fall for those scams. And then next, a false witness that speaks lies. And he that does what? Sows discord among his brethren. And that's what he had just warned about early on when he said, they that sow discord. There it is in verse 14. Stay away from people, stay away from friends, stay away from partnerships where people are constantly talking about other people behind their back. Happens so often, but God is giving us an inside picture of the type of people that we need to stay away from. This is the number one character trait of a person that you can tell. Get out of that relationship. Get out of it now. Don't give sleep to your eyelids. Be like the gazelle. You're not going to stay in a relationship, especially business relationships, with someone that has character like this. These are the 6 things that God hates. And know what it says next? I love this. My son. He's now picking up where he left off. My son, keep your father's commandment and forsake or neglect not the Torah of your mother.
Hey, that sounds familiar.
All the way back to chapter 1.
Aw, that's beautiful.
But in chapter 1, he says, don't neglect or obey your father's correction. And guess what he says next? Bind them continually upon your heart, tie them around your neck, and when you go, they will lead you. When you sleep, it will guard you. And when you awake, they will talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp that's going to guide your way. The law of your mother is light. And?
Reproofs and instruction are the way of life.
And the word instruction is?
Correction.
Reproofs of correction
are
the way of life.
I needed to hear that today.
To keep you from where?
The evil woman.
The woman who does what?
She flatters with her tongue.
And then?
Oh, and there's the Zor again.
There she is.
Or no, that's Nakri.
This is, the Father's using the next step up.
Wow.
If you give in to the Zor in the very beginning, you're going to end up with this woman who is a stealth hunter for her sexual appetite.
Okay, so Zor is below the Nakri?
A little bit. She's more of a foreigner. The Nakre is a person who's going all out. She's the one that is stealth. This whole thing ties together. If the son is not going to give in to being duped so easily, what does the Father say? This is so cool. I'm going to guard you from the evil woman, the one who flatters with her tongue, the strange woman. Don't lust after her beauty or with her eyelids.
What does that mean? Let her take you with her eyelids.
The eyelids, she has this mascara on, and she's got her eyes shaped in the form of, guess what? The sun.
Oh.
I looked it up.
You're doing like a cat eye.
That's how it looks. She's got this beauty to her. She's all made up. She's got all kinds of makeup on. She looks amazing.
So it's like an enticing look.
Absolutely. And guess what? She's coming to get you. And this is what it says. For by means of a whorish woman, the man will be brought to a piece of bread. Back then, a prostitute could be purchased just by a piece of bread, by a loaf of bread.
Oh, gross.
But moreover, he is going to lose everything.
Yeah, I mean, she's taking and taking and taking
he's
and
going
taking.
to be brought to, all he's going to have left is a loaf of bread.
He'll be like nothing.
The loaf of bread was the minimal amount that you could live on. It was the very base part of life. But it doesn't end there. She is going to hunt for his precious life, it says. There are three things that are taking place here. She flatters with her lips. She beguiles with her beauty. She entices with her touch. Those are the three steps, Molly, that folly uses to capture, seduce the heart of our children, teens, and young adults. And adults. Flatters with her lips, beguiles with her beauty, entices with her touch. She always wants to get to step 3. Because once she has touched him, he can never get out of her grasp easily.
It's like overpowering control. So it's like messing with the mind. And then, there's that lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. It hits those three things. Pride of life with the flattery, lust of the eyes with her eyelids, and then lust of the flesh with the touch.
Whoa, I never saw that connection. Well,
yeah, that's
really
crazy.
Cool.
So it hits those 3 points, the 3 temptation points. And then it says what? Like once lust hits
conceived,
it's conceived. Death. Yeah, the temptation and lust meet and intersect, and it's sin. And then it leads to death, which that's what Proverbs talks about too.
That's really good. I think we've spent enough time on this. I want to just kind of close this out with verse 34. Verse 33, a wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. So there are consequences. But even though there's going to be consequences, doesn't mean there can't be forgiveness and restoration. I've said this many times. We are going to fall. A just man falls down 7 times, but gets back up again. There's the hope. God can restore us. Satan is a thief. He comes to seek and destroy. God came to give us life and restoration and redemption. Molly, I almost don't want to tell you this, but chapter 7's next. Wisdom lesson number 9. That is the toughest of all of the wisdom lessons.
Most intense.
It's so intense that when I read it and studied it for a year, I felt like throwing up. I was so done with this study. I was like, oh, Lord, I can't do this much more. Chapter 7, wisdom lesson number 9, is going to bring to light what this woman is really like and what she's after. She is going to come out in full force, complete stealth. She is going to come, and she's not going to take any prisoners until she takes them straight to hell. So next time on Fasten Like Nails, we're going to go into the depth of chapter 7. But the beauty of it all is that there's chapter 8 after that.
Amen.
And chapter 8
there is light at the end of the tunnel.
is one of the greatest blessings of all times, only leading up to, it's like the rest before the battle, leading up to chapter 9, which is the epic battle between wisdom and folly.
Whew. Lots of things to look forward to.
Oh, yes, there is. So, Molly, I look forward to doing this again at another Fasten Like Nails. God bless.
You've been listening to Fastened Like Nails, a presentation of Lamplighter Ministries. Our mission is to make ready a people prepared for the Lord by building Christlike character, one story at a time. To learn more about our family collection of rare books, dramatic audios, or guild programs, visit lamplighter.net. To hear more podcasts, search for Fastened Like Nails wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a question you would like to submit for the Lamplighter team, visit fastenedlikenails.net and fill out the form. That's fastenedlikenails.net.